we've got the Fireside Chat with Mr. Sameer Nair, CEO, Applause Entertainment. Big round of applause, please.
Welcome to the King. A big welcome to the King. The King and the Kingmaker, both. Yeah. All right. It's going to be free flowing, and feel free to, if I'm crossing the line, tell me I'm crossing the line. Your views on the OTT landscape. I mean, your views on television today.
Views on television?
Television as well as on OTT.
Okay. Just so in case for those of you who don't know me or don't know what I'm doing, I don't have a platform and I don't work with a broadcast company. What we are is a content studio. We've investing in the creation of content. Premium drama series, not web series. It's actually premium television drama, which has been done in the US for many years, is what we're really doing. Actually, it's an interesting point in time because, I think TV has sort of reached a degree of high maturity. 187 million cable homes. It's really grown, become really big, really powerful medium. Adding to that, now you've got whatever 900 million odd mobile phones. So you've got screens everywhere. So the way we are seeing this business is rather than television or OTT or streaming or any of that, it's just, a billion screens out there in front of a billion people. And if you look around you, you're always looking at people staring at these screens, doing something with it, as in whether it's social media, whether it's chatting, whether it's on the internet, or whether it's consuming content, they're looking at these screens. Therein lies the opportunity. And I think in that process, consumption habits are changing. So, I come from a time when we used to have people watching 4-5 hours of television a day. It's probably down to an hour. But in the meantime, people are spending a lot of time on their screens, consuming all sorts of content. So I think the number of hours spent, the time spent, continues to grow. It's just different people doing different things. And it's a good time to be in this space.
As a creative person, how's life changed from one being a commissioning head of sorts in the way what we would call in the US to now being with the specter of TRPs versus being a commissioning producer with none of that fear?
Actually, when you now think back, when you look at TRPs was that nice way kind of situation, which is good. When you talk to the OTT platforms today, and when they talk about data, and that's way scarier than TRPs then, because at least TRPs was 10,000 boxes spread across India, trying to tell you what 600 million people are doing, and you sort of go with that flow once every Thursday. Right?
But Thursdays was terrible. It's still terrible.
Yeah, but I'm saying that it's still, what do you say? That there's lies, damned lies in statistics. So, it sort of works out okay. Now, obviously, streaming data is way more accurate. And so the whole game then becomes the number of people who watch it and completion rates.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's like really the thing. So
but you're not thinking of any of that when you're producing now.
No, we only think of things like that. See, eventually,
seriously,
when you start out...
But you haven't sold to anyone as yet.
No, that's what. So when you start out, what you do in the beginning is that you're going to make content, you have a reasonable understanding of the market. You have a reasonable understanding of the audience, of what people would like to see. Obviously, there's no foolproof formula. As in, you can't have a focus group and ask 20 people, do you want to see X or Y? Because... working with focus groups to create content would be tricky. But beyond that, once you've created it, once you have a sense of how these things are working, I think data and audience reactions are going to play a big role in this.
I understand. So how do you simulate the data points, or what do you do to ensure?
See, for now, I think to get started, it's about good storytelling. It's about looking at need gaps. It's looking at things that are missing in the market. Like, for example, we all know that drama series content is dominated on television by the daily soap opera. It's been going on for the last 20 years, so you don't really need research to tell you that. You can see it. You do know that what the Indian audience and the Indian content ecosystem lacks is good stories. You do know that. Film does a lot of it, of course. Every year, film produces a lot of big movies and a lot of small movies, and they both do well. So therein lies the opportunity. So to that extent, it's pretty common sense that what India lacks is high-quality drama series. We haven't made it in 20 years, so maybe we should, which is what we're doing.
You did good stuff. I mean, I know you may dismiss Kyuki and Kahani, but it was good stuff for its time.
No, of course it was good stuff. It made $1 billion. It paid off all the debts. It did wonderful things for everyone.
Yeah.
But there is more to life than that. In any market, in any mature content environment, in a country as diverse as ours, there should obviously going to be more than just a telenovela, right? Sure. There are going to be other things.
Those were actually afternoon formats which you put into prime time.
And it worked really well, so that's good. And the whole market sort of pivoted in that direction. But now the opportunity is to tell a lot more stories, do a lot more different things. And it's not just drama. I mean, there's short form, there's animation, there's kids, there's all sorts of things happening.
So you're backing all of these?
We are currently focused on doing dramas, but when you look at the market, when you see the opportunities that are there are so many things that are going to happen, and I think it's a good time to be a creator, no matter what you're creating.
Fantastic. So, in terms of, I'm going to speak to you on two levels. One as the head of Applause, and one as an experienced industry professional. We are seeing mergers and acquisitions happening. Just 2 days ago, Z announced that they're looking for a strategic partner. Do you see this entire wave of that's coming over the content ecosystem? Do you see that impacting and leading to more mergers and acquisitions happening? One of your former companies has been acquired.
Well, I think what's happening is that everyone is reacting to how the business is changing. A lot of things. I mean, if you look back 10 years ago, if you were to say who are the big media companies, they would be Disney and Fox and Viacom. And now 10 years on, if you say which are the big media companies, you're saying things like Google and Facebook, and that's what you're saying, right? You're saying Netflix. So Amazon. Apple, so they've become the new media companies. So suddenly, what was the big, I mean, I worked for a large part of my life in News Corporation, and we always regarded ourselves as being one of the world's biggest media companies. So obviously, I'm horrified to discover that, well, no, it's not anymore, right? And somebody else is, and much bigger. So that is happening. And also, there's a lot of other things happening. So it's not just media now. See, the thing is that there's a thing about share of wallet. And a lot of people are looking at it in that manner. So you're no longer a leader in your industry. The question is, what is your share of wallet, fundamentally? If you look at Jio, I don't think Jio is interested in, number of hours or number of all of that. They are essentially interested in, how much share of your wallet goes to them. And when you're now talking about different people, when you're talking the screens are merging. So you take Amazon. Amazon is actually an e-commerce company, right, which is also selling you video. Apple is a device company which will also do things like that. Facebook is social media which will do that. So different people will do that, and they're really big guys, big valuation, lots of money. So I think mergers and acquisitions are a good thing. I mean, it's
so do you see them rising?
It will happen if they don't. Listen, it's going to be either merge or die. So you got to pick.
Or get acquired.
Yeah. Or get acquired. Same thing.
Great. I mean, in terms of the big boys, on what do you think is happening to content? With the big boys coming in and with big budgets like we never had before.
Well, it's a good thing, actually.
What's happening in this sense? Freeing everybody? Or
it is freeing. See, what happens usually is that one is, of course, there's the whole drunken sailor phenomena, which is that every time there's a new surge and new people enter the industry, there's that little excitement, when sailors arrive at the port for the first time, and then the first night is quite exciting. Then they sort of wake up with a hangover, then you get a little drift of what's going on, and then you move on from there. That being said, it's good that we are taking the value of content up. It's really important to invest in content. I think that's something that India has always sort of lacked in. And we should do that. We should invest in content, which is what we are doing. It's not always about, but what's the monetization? Because it's also a moment in time where we are building an industry. We're building a business here. We're trying to build a consumer habit. Yeah. The consumer habit will not going to get built out of one hit show. It's going to be built out of hundreds of such shows, hundreds of such pieces of content, which will make people acclimatized to consuming content, and out of that it gets built. So there'll be lots of hits and misses. But it's a good thing that this is happening. It's a good thing that big companies are spending large amounts of money on this content. Water finds its level,
Sure, I
agree with what she was saying, that it's not about spending 5 crores an episode or 5 lakhs an episode and telling a great story, and that's true. The other good thing about content is, content is not a commodity that you can win with a price war. right? You can't win that with a price war.
Absolutely.
You have to win that with a great story. You have to reach out to consumers, you have to connect with them, and then you could spend 300 crores making it, or you could make 10 crores making it. In recent times, you've seen these examples in Bollywood, right? Of different things going
Smaller
different
films
ways.
becoming blockbusters.
So I think the focus has got to be there. The focus has got to be on that.
Great. So what's your vision and Kumaramangala Billa's vision for Applause?
Well, actually, I tell you what we are doing. See, vision, we like to look at it as in 2-3 year horizon, 5-10 year horizon, and then, of course, in the long term, we are all dead.
That's your favorite phase.
In the near term, what we are doing is that we are working actively with the creative community. We are buying rights for international shows to adapt them into India. We are acquiring books to adapt them into series. We are doing a lot of original writing. It's a lot of hard work. This market is not really built for it yet, but we are doing that. We are spending the money. And we are then, after completing that, we are having conversations with platforms, and pretty interesting conversations as to who can carry this and on what terms. There are different models that are emerging. We are having conversations about licensing. We are having conversations about outright purchases. We've built up a very strong sort of development pipeline. So people are talking to us about getting into a co-production at an early stage. So it's different things. The way I see it is, there are so many platforms out there, there are so many consumers out there, there's such a huge need gap for content that I don't regard myself as a competitor. I am actually just, I am part of that mix. You're putting out 10 shows, maybe you take one from me. You're putting out 100 shows, maybe you take 10 from me, right? That kind of thing. And we are essentially just focused on that. We are focused on, helping build this industry.
So, the negative folks say that they're actually a secret R&D lab for Vodafone Idea to start there. You're kind of postulating that you're doing it for platforms, but you're actually doing it for the Vodafone Idea play that's coming forward.
Well, first of all, we wouldn't be secretive. I'm out here. But that being said, no, it's nothing like that, because I think this is pretty arm's length. We are in conversations actually with the other telecom platforms as well. Also, one more thing is that the way this market is playing out is that obviously there's a lot of focus on OTT, rightfully so, and they are the big branded platforms, consumers recognize them. But the three telecom players between Jio, Airtel, and Vodafone Idea are actually extremely powerful latent platforms. It's just that they haven't been discovered. If you suppose you take Vodafone Play. Vodafone Play has some, combined, the new entity has about 120 million 4G customers. They have a streaming app. They're already out there. They have billing systems in place, but you don't know that it exists.
Right? I know it exists. I'm a Vodafone subscriber.
Most people don't know that, but and they got lots of stuff on it. So, and these are very big platforms. When you look at YouTube, YouTube has got 250 million customers. So, in a sense, while all the hype surrounds the streaming platforms, the fact is that there are many platforms that are already pretty big, that already exist. So, it's a pretty wide market, and we are having interesting conversations with all of them.
Including the in-house Vodafone.
Of course, they're a platform. You must have a conversation.
Just wanted to dispel that myth, because a few people were bitching about that. This is a hidden play. And thank you for clarifying that. Really appreciate it. What kind of producers are you working with? What kind of stories are you looking for? And you've got something on your slate already, the development pipeline. So going forward, what else are you looking for, which is not there on your plate?
We are working with a really interesting bunch of people. So, like, for example, we got the rights to the American Office from the BBC, and we produced that. We've already made 28 episodes of that. That is produced by BBC. It's directed by 3 directors, and written by like some 8 or 9 writers. So it's like pretty. We are also doing Night Off, which is again a BBC production. It's directed by Tigmanshu Dhulia. Turned out really well. We are doing Harshad Mehta's story.
That would be interesting.
Who's
helped you with that?
We bought the book, yes, Sucheta's book, and Hansal Mehta will be directing that and show running it. So that's turning out pretty well. Goldie is doing a show for us. We are working on a big historical with Abhimanyu. There's a really nice show we've made with the Ding Productions with Swara Bhaskar. There's lots of stuff. We're working with Sudhir Mishra directed a show for us. So there's a lot of writing, lots of interesting stuff going on. Nagesh Kuknur has written and directed an original series for us. So these are ready. More are being done.
You haven't sold them as
Not
yet?
yet. We're just finished. I mean, actually, I'm just 1 year old, and so while we sort of
But you've done a lot for a year.
So while we fast-tracked a lot, but it is absurd. It takes time to make this. There's a lot of, it's not easy. It's all in the writing. It takes time to write. It takes time to produce. Murphy's Law is applicable at all times. So, but it's good. And now we're doing many more shows. So it's an exciting space.
So how does one get across to you? Like, she gave the writer's room at erosnow.com. So how does one get across ideas to you?
Well, actually, everyone gets in touch with me. Most people know me. Most people know my team.
The youngsters don't know you.
I mean, I'll give you an email ID. It's just that we have a pretty long email ID. So she was lucky she had a shorter ID. Ours is a bit of a mouthful, but I'll tell you anyway. It's talent@applause.adityabirla.com.
Talent@applause.adityabirla.com.
Yeah.
No, I'll remember it. I'll probably send some of my specs to you, speculative pitches. So what have you learned about being a producer as opposed to being a broadcaster earlier? How has your mindset changed?
Well, I think it's not comparable because see, when we, as a broadcaster, and especially the kind of television that we've been doing for the last 18 odd years, is that we are working with a very high quality of producer, and the producer was working on a format which had got pretty standardized. Sure. So, in the sense that the producers you work with are really good, they know what they're doing, and the whole format is sort of fixed. Now, the one big learning that we are discovering, and I'm sure they're discovering too, is that writing a series over 10 to 12 episodes, which is then got to go over multiple seasons, which you produce one season at a time, with, an eye on characters, an eye on story, an eye on subtext, layers, and longer arcs, is something that is relatively new to India. Films tend to be a classic start, middle, end, and it sort of gets over. And the daily soap tends to be very daily, in the sense that, it's daily soaps are, as you say, big on characters, slow on plot.
Scenes you've about
and,
5 scenes.
You sort of go along from there. So this thing requires you to tell. It's almost like making 4 movies in one shot, but not ending it because you want to do multiple seasons. So it's a process. It's hard work. It doesn't get easily done. A lot of writers find it too much hard work to do. Some people are interested. You do need experience. It's a process, but are
you still enjoying it?
Well, it's great fun, and actually, I think all the creators we're working with are enjoying it themselves. And
I'm talking about you specifically.
Oh, I love this stuff. I like telling stories. So if you remember, before we did the whole Saas Bahu, sort of juggernaut, we used to do a lot of interesting stuff on Star. It never worked, of course, but we did bestsellers. We did so many shows. We did a show called Rajdhani. Rajdhani, in a sense, would be a sort of precursor to House of Cards. It was a political drama set in Delhi. Bobby Bedi used to produce that show for us. So we've done a lot of stuff, but it never worked because, that time we used to get 0.3 rating for everything. So then we had to sort of, take matters into our own hands and have Bahus.
But you did a good job with Kyunki. Whatever anyone
discredits
you, I credit you.
No, it did wonderfully. And in fact, after Kyunki, then Kyunki, Kahani, Kasauti, the whole thing, it sort of worked brilliantly. And it changed.
I call it the golden age, by the way.
Totally. It changed our fortunes completely. And you've criticized it so many times at the awards, saying that, how can you make this regressive programming? But we stuck at it.
I never called it regressive. Samir, that's
we
a fallacy.
We refused to give up.
You won the maximum
We
awards.
were making too much money.
Samir, Kahani and Kyunki won the maximum awards. That's an unfair statement.
No, it's true.
It won the maximum.
Course, always.
I've stood up and I've fought with the Shabana.
I'm just kidding.
I fought with the Shabani Azmi when she said you all make regressive programming. There was a Screenwriters Association workshop, and she said Star is making regressive program, and I stood up and I told her, "Do you watch television?" She said no. Then I said, "How can you call it regressive?"
True. No, and
it just that was a bit below the belly.
It just sort of got a little famous for being that way, but I have explained to journalists numerous times that in order to be progressive, you have to be regressive and then proceed to resolve the situation. So,
I even gave Kyunki or Kahani a corporate social, there was a social, we did. I
In fact,
take back your words.
No, I take it back. I'm really sorry. And I'll tell you one more thing. Actually, Kyunki Kahani, and it came together at one point in time. The two things happened for Indian media, if you will, is that on the one hand, Ekta Kapoor and the entire daily soap universe that we created, and on the other hand, Karan Johar, with his brand of, like in many ways, Kyunki and Kahani are Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum on TV. Right? Sure. It's the same sort of universe. And in a sense, we popularized Hindu ritual and culture. It's only after the combination of Karan and Ekta that even Karwa Chauth became popular to the extent that Tamilians are doing it. You have to wonder at some point, what are you doing? And weddings all over India have Mehndi Sangeet Shadi. And you say, seriously? But it's a thing. So it's a really big, strong cultural phenomena.
I'm sure you're going to do it on OTT again. With your product,
but now the advantage with OTT and with this whole thing is that now rather than looking at a one-size-fits-all, you can treat this as a mass of niches. You can tell different sort of different tribes, different groups of people.
You've been reading Seth Godin.
Sorry?
You've been reading Seth Godin. Tribes.
Tribe cohorts. There are so many words, Whatever.
Cohorts, yeah.
Cohorts. Let's go with cohorts. So different cohorts of people you can tell stories, and different people like different stories. So what TV never allowed you to do was get away from the one size fits all. Because the minute you do something distinctive, then take 24. The first season of 24 was really good.
Absolutely.
But it didn't rate. It rated, but not as much as and all of that.
Sure.
I think something that went on air recently, Prisoner of War, that was good.
Yeah, but
it
didn't rate.
So these kind of things, I think platforms work. And it also allows you to tell new story. And even not just Hindi, all the languages. I've just made a fantastic Bhojpuri show. We call it Bhojpuri 2.0, just taking it up. So going past the Spider-Man, Mere Dil Ka Chain kind of thing. So we're moving on from there. But it's really nice, very well produced, shot in Banaras and Mughal Sarai, changed to Deen Dayal or something like that. Very nice. And
I'm sure. That's why when I began, I said the king and the kingmaker.
Well, I don't know about king or kingmaker. We're making some shows, trying to tell some stories, working with really good people.
And I'm not being servile or anything, but congratulations for all the work you've done over the years.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for calling me and chatting with you.
Yeah. And questions to him, quickly, because I've run out of time. But this session I'm going to extend beyond time because you don't get this man very often.
Questions? Hi, I'm Kishore Srivastava. Just wanted to ask you, when you select a particular story for a web series or something, do you look at number of seasons, or if the story is completing it in one season itself, you're ready to go ahead with that, or maybe 5 episodes, 6 episodes, or whatever?
Ideally, you want to more than you want to try and create a universe first, right? Because at the end of the day, while it is art and it is storytelling, it's also a business. And you are doing it, at the end of the day, all art needs patrons. Okay. And so you need to conduct it in that manner. So if you are able to create a universe and then tell a story in that with an opportunity to keep the story going, it's a good thing. Not to say that we are not doing standalone seasons, but it's not the preferred thing. Okay. Ideally, you want to have something that can go on. You want to create characters because you invest so much time and effort in creating that universe and that character and all of that. Okay. It's a pity to end it.
Okay.
It's just that. But there's no fixed rule. We are all for example, we don't do anthologies. Okay. As in, we don't do standalone stories and prefer story arcs. But it's not to say we won't do it. Yeah. It's just a thing. And there's no right answer to this.
Okay.
Any other question from the audience? Yeah. Identify yourself, please. There's a mic coming your way so we can hear you clearly. Team, don't mind me. I'm going to overrun this one even a little longer.
Hi, I'm Subhashri. I work with Sony, and since you've been on both sides, is OTT more profitable than television?
At this point, OTT is
OTT is question too early.
There's no. Currently, at this point in time, I don't think OTT is in the space for profit. Profit is a very far away word.
How do you look at it going further?
See, you know what they say, that nothing is going to happen the next couple of years, and a lot is going to happen the next 10 years. So, life is going to be somewhere in the middle. I think what is happening though is that as audiences keep consuming different type, like currently my version of watching Netflix is watching it on my TV, right? So it's not such a mobile experience for me. It's a very fixed on the wall, large screen kind of thing. But I am watching a platform, and a lot of audiences are becoming they don't really know the difference, right? Tomorrow, when you get an OTT platform via your Tata Sky or via your cable guy or via your television onto a device, you're not seeing it in that manner. You're not seeing how it works. What you're doing is you're spending time watching content.
So I'm purely asking from the perspective that today, when you're talking about TV, there is subscription revenue and there's advertising revenue. In terms of OTT also, you're having both, but the content acquisition cost is higher.
Right.
And of course, marketing costs are higher in both cases. So which is why I'm asking this question.
I don't think TV is going to be dead in a hurry. I think TV is making way too much money and will continue to do that, right? But that's not to say that in the next few years, these two can't coexist and that this won't grow. See, it's a very large audience, right? You're talking about TV reaching 800 million people. You're talking about OTT wanting SVOD subscription from 100 million. You're talking about telcos creating what is called DVOD, which is data video on demand, which is you don't pay me for the content, why don't you just consume the data? You're talking about e-commerce companies which are doing eVOD, which is, don't pay me for the content, but why don't you buy products and I'll give you overnight delivery. So there's new models. So it's not necessarily always just subscription and advertising, and it's drifting in that direction. So we'll see.
Yeah, but if you remember, Netflix, the more it loses, the more valuable it becomes. The more it borrows, the more valuable it's becoming. So that's the investor philosophy.
Why not?
Yeah, because they're looking at the future. And like you said, tomorrow we're all dead.
That we are.
Yeah, all right. But that was on a negative note. I hope to end on a positive note. But thank you for the time you've given me.
Thank you so much.
Really been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.